number of milestones in my life where I think this is something only an adult would do, or an adult can do. And so getting married, that's something adults do. And having a child, that's something adults do. And getting ordained into the priesthood, that is a very adult thing, a very grown-up thing to do. And at 47, I still think of myself as maybe a grown-up, almost a grown-up. But when I became a Rotarian, I thought, well, this is probably the most grown-up thing I will ever do. Becoming a Rotarian. I became a Rotarian in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And I remember I went as a guest several times to the Western Sizzling Chinese buffet. It came the day to vote for me to become a Rotarian, and everybody voted unanimously. I was a Rotarian. And I got my folder of stuff and my little Rotary pen, and I love the Rotary slogan, service above self. Service above self. Of all the slogans I've seen in this world, it is one of the best. Service above self. Now, the chapter to which I belonged, we ate really bad Chinese food on Tuesdays. We had lectures from the Mississippi State Ag Extension, and a guy who builds canoes out of whole tree trunks. And we had a fair every year, but I don't ever remember doing anything like service. There was no service above self in Rotary unless you counted serving your plate if you walked through the really bad Chinese food. Service above self, though, it's an amazing and wonderful motto. And you don't have to be a Rotarian to live it. And it's what Jesus is talking about. Jesus is saying that we are called to be servants. We are called to be slaves. That's a weighted word if ever there was. We are called to be slaves to one another. A few weeks ago, I shared with everybody my big mistake of warming up Archie's juice. I warmed it up once, and now I am required by Archie to warm it up every time. And of course I can say no. Jennifer, my wife, Archie's mom, says no. She says no without any problem at all. And Archie comes into the kitchen the other night, and I'm making dinner, and he slams his cup down on the counter, his sippy cup. And he says, "Dad, juice, warm it up." And I yell back at him, "I am not your servant." And then I realize, it's like, oh, I kind of am. I am definitely his servant. And you know, not in the Mr. Belvedere way, but like I'm his dad, but I'm also, I make sure that he's dressed, I make sure that he's fed, I make sure that he's bathed. Even when he's kicking and screaming, in all three examples, I make sure that he gets what he needs. I am his servant. I serve him. I teach him. I try to lead him. And it is no easy thing being a servant, and it's an even more difficult thing being a loving servant. And being a servant like in Downton Abbey, I think, would be fairly easy. Serving a wealthy English family, even as selfish and as self-centered as they might be, yeah, I've got to shine somebody's shoes, and I've got to iron their clothes, and I've got to do this. But they're English, and they're proper, and I don't think they ever said to Mr. Whoever Humphreys, "Warm up my juice." But the servant from television that comes to mind, from movies that comes to mind, it's not from Downton Abbey. It's not Mr. Belvedere. This is the wrong demographic, by and large, for Mr. Belvedere. But if you've seen The Princess Bride, And you remember Farm Boy Wesley? Farm boy, fetch me that water. Farm boy, get me that rake. Farm boy, brush my horse. And at every turn, he said, as you wish. As you wish. And he said it truthfully, without malice. Now, admittedly, Farm Boy Wesley was in love. He was in romantic love. But we are called to godly love. To a love of service. A love that gives and gives and gives. A love that says to whoever it is we're serving, as you wish. As you wish. And it doesn't matter if the person is our child, our spouse, our parent, a patron at St. Luke's who wants more fruit, a person at the bus stop. Our response should always be, as you wish. We are called to serve. And when everyone is called to serve, the beautiful and wonderful thing is that everyone will be served. Imagine this community, all of us serving one another. And I say to Mark, Mark, you go get me some mints. And Mark says, as you wish. And then Mark says to me, Jason, I would love fried shrimp for lunch. As you wish. It's going to be a minute. And it would just be this wonderful, reciprocal relationship. We are called not to be served, but to serve. But in serving one another, we are served. In loving one another, we are loved. We are called to a way higher than this world. We are called to a way of God, a way of love, a way of peace, a way of grace, a way of mercy. We are called to love. We are called to serve. We are called to see in one another the face of Christ. So that whenever we ask to do something by someone, it's not Gail asking me, Jason, will you wash my car? It's Jesus saying, Jason, will you wash my car? And of course, I'm going to say to Jesus, as you